Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Hey guys, welcome back to Pure Athlete. I am Jeff Francoeur, live from New York City, and I got the two Stooges back in studio, Britt and Brad. Hey guys, happy Memorial Day.
Man, I'm not sure I'm even going to reply to that.
I will. That's a heck of a lead in there, I tell you. Instead of saying old, now we're called Stooges.
Yeah, we're Stooges. Yeah. I don't know about that.
I feel like that's better than old.
We're going to start firing back here soon.
I want to.
There's going to be some counter punching going on here soon.
So did y'all have a great Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, it was really good. I traveled up to Grand Rapids, Michigan to see my daughter and son-in-law, and just got back last night, and it was super nice. My first time to Grand Rapids.
Yeah, what'd you do up there?
We did a lot of sightseeing in Grand Rapids, everything you can see, which is kind of interesting. We went to Holland and actually saw our guest today's high school where he played, and he talks all about that, and that's where Kirk Cousins is from. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes.
How about you, Jeff? You were up in when did you go up to New York?
Well, I got to New York. I had a busy one, man. We went up to Kentucky for my daughter's 10U Memorial Day travel tournament, and it rained all day Sunday in huge storms. Man. They got the whole tournament in on Saturday. And actually, me and my other coach, we went to the Opryland Hotel with the kids and did the water park all day Sunday and Monday morning. Then I flew to New York. Well, I had a full weekend, man.
That's super fun, man.
What about you, Brad?
This was the greatest weekend that I can remember because I didn't have anything planned. We didn't have any baseball games. We didn't have any family gatherings. It was just my family and I hanging out, cooking out, doing a lot of yard work, taking naps, like a 55-year-old does. And so it was really a great 3-day weekend of just, for the first time in a long, long time, not having anything on our calendar. Nice. So it was nice.
So, Jeff, you're up there to do a little MLB tonight. And speaking of MLB, we had some big things happen, especially here in Atlanta over the past 72 hours. Tell us your thoughts about Acuna and what it means for the Braves. And people are really bummed here in Atlanta.
Well, you know what? When he went down back in 21, when you think about it, like you knew, right? Like he ran hard. You could see the way. This is the freak one, man. This is the one that frustrates you because he's literally just stopping and starting, right? And all of a sudden it goes. But I'll remind people that, baseball players and teams have a funny way of overcoming injuries. And they were able to do it a few years ago. And people say, well, Strider went down also this year. Strider wasn't there 3 years ago when they won the World Series in the 21 season. So you can look at it a couple different ways. Does it stink? Does it hurt? Absolutely, man. He's one of the most dynamic players. But I also think that, this is a team that can keep moving forward. And, we've seen Alex Anthopoulos, man. He'll get creative at the deadline. He'll figure out a way to bring somebody or someone to help this team. So, I feel like that it stinks. It stinks for Ronald, because, it's the other knee now coming back. But at the same time, look, I think they'll find a way to try to move forward and see what they can do. It's never fun. But, look, they still got a great baseball team, and I think they'll be able to do some things.
What wasn't noticed that game was the performance of Chris Sale. And the guy is on a Cy Young streak right now, or Cy Young kind of, he's got momentum. It stinks for Acuna. Obviously, it stinks for the fans of Atlanta because we don't get a chance to watch one of the best players in the game. But, sports are funny. Chemistry is a funny thing. And, sometimes it happens at the worst times, and, for the best reasons. But hopefully the Braves, you got Murphy back. And so hopefully this will be a great memory that we can look back like we did 2 years ago.
Well, one more question about that, Jeff. I'm just curious, as a guy who's been in the clubhouse for many, many years. yesterday coming out of the news that happened the night before, the Braves just really seemed flat. Is that kind of normal, or was that just, just one of those games?
No, I actually was on the call. If you remember, Ronald did it the Saturday before the All-Star break in 21. And Sunday, Pablo Lopez set a record. And I think, I'm trying to remember, he struck out the first 7 or 8 Atlanta Braves on that Sunday. And they got steamrolled before the All-Star break game. Then they took the 4 days off. They came back and, of course, just had a beautiful second half. So I think you got to give yourself a day or two to just,
to mourn.
Just digest everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You start to wonder, okay, who's playing here? What's the lineup going to look like? So that stuff will get straightened out. Again, at the end of the day, one thing I continue to say, the Braves are 30-20.
Yeah.
One game off the pace they were last year. So it's still a great baseball team. It's just a tough blow. And then, of course, on Monday, Memorial Day, too, we lost the great Bill Walton. That was tough, man. What a great guy, the way he lived life. And then the other piece of news, not to flip it to that, but Angel Hernandez has finally retired umpiring in baseball. Yeah. Not going to say more than that, but I just know for a lot of people, Angel's done.
Yeah. It's that's going to cut down on some Instagram reels.
Yes, it will. It will. But I'm excited, guys, for these next 2 episodes. We had Kirk Cousins for the live event. It was so much fun. It's our second live event we were able to do, and we're going to split this one up into 2 episodes because it's a lot to digest. There's a lot of good things, and I think the cool thing, guys, in this first part that you're going to see this week, he talks a lot about his youth growing up in Michigan. He talks a lot about his dad, man. His dad was his dad was a preacher. He was all this stuff, but you could tell, man, his dad was hard-nosed, and he expected Kirk to give it his all. And I thought he made some great points with the lessons his dad taught him.
Yeah, this would be a great Father's Day episode. I had so many fathers come to me and just said, man, I wish I was as good as Kirk's dad and did the things that he did in raising him. And I mean, gosh, he was amazing. It was one of our best podcast episodes. It just happened to be a live event as well, which made it even more special.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And maybe to set the stage for the audience, just to kind of tell you how this whole thing went down. I mean, we had over 1,500 people right there in Alpharetta, Georgia, and we did a lot of fun stuff leading up to bringing Kurt on stage. And then when Kirk came on stage, man, we just had a great time talking about all kinds of stuff that we're so excited for folks to hear this week and next week.
Yeah, and I think another my final thing, guys, before we get the episode going, that I thought was really cool was, you want to talk about a family man? He brought his wife and 2 kids, and I'll say this, man. I've been around a lot of athletes. I've done a lot of speaking stuff, and I rarely have ever brought Katie and my kids. Obviously, I have a whole troop with 4 of them and going, but I thought it was cool that it was so important to him, and even for his kids to hear it. And actually, we got done with that, and I saw them at the pool 2 days later. We had the kids out for Memorial Day week. The pool was open before we left, and we got to hang out a little bit and just talk. What a great event. And so I thought it was really cool. Like I said, we're going to split this one up into 2 episodes, but you two, I have to brag, did an unbelievable job of setting this whole thing up. I truly got to brag on y'all. I kind of, I'm the pretty face, right? I get to kind of come in.
I thought I was
the Stooges.
I thought I was a pretty face. Wait a minute, I'm confused now.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I appreciate the work you two did setting up this whole event. And what a success it was for dads, for families, and hopefully for kids and coaches. So with that being said, the first part of Kirk Cousins, hope you enjoy it. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Oh, man. Well, we cannot thank you enough for coming. Brought your wife and kids with you tonight.
That's right. Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yes. Are you getting used to being here in Atlanta?
We love it. The phrase Southern hospitality means something totally new to me now, because we have been welcomed since we got here in mid-March, beyond my expectations. It's been outstanding. My wife is from the Alpharetta Johns Creek area. So Julie's my wife. We're coming up on 10 years of marriage here in a month. And we've got 2 boys, Cooper, who's 6, Turner, who's 5. They'll be in first grade and kindergarten this coming fall. And we are getting accustomed to all things Atlanta, making the drive from Johns Creek to Flowery Branch right now every morning, which is a long drive. And we're going to end up moving to Suwanee and cut the drive down a little bit. But we're thrilled to be here. I looked at Julie just yesterday in our neighborhood, and I said, this is probably our best setup we've had now in 13 years of professional sports, as far as where we live and how we'll do school and family and weather and the airport. It's just a great place to live and work. I'm sure you all would agree, and so we're thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Speaking of that, how are OTAs? How's the Achilles feeling? You ready to roll?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Achilles is coming along well. They told me when I did it, end of October last year, they said it'd be 9 months, which will take me to August 1st. So I'm still kind of trying to close that gap here and get the final strength and mobility back. But we're making progress every day. We had practice this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, and OTAs are going well. There's a lot of new for me, new playbook, new coaches, new teammates, just everything's new. And so I'm trying to, get familiarized with the things as fast as I can, but really, really looking forward to this season. I'd also probably say that this is the most excited I've been for a football season in a long time, so can't wait to get going.
That sounds great. I think you've generated a little bit of excitement here in Atlanta, so we are super glad that you're here. We're going to dive right in. Yeah. Kurt, we know that you grew up in Chicago and then in Michigan, and we just want to get into your youth sports story and what that journey looked like. So why don't you kind of take us from the beginning? Sure. and your roots of getting involved in sports?
Sure. So my dad, who's actually a pastor, we grew up in Chicago, and he loves sports, put us in sports at a very young age. I think soccer might have been my first organized sport, but then it was t-ball quickly thereafter. I had an older brother, 2 years older, so we were always on the teams together, and if we weren't playing together, we were in the backyard competing against each other. My dad was out there with us, and my dad's schedule as a pastor actually gave him some flexibility to be able to coach a lot of our teams and help out, and so he was always around our youth sports involvements. And football was always my favorite, but football was more of a recess sport. My parents weren't thrilled about me playing tackle early, so it was just playing at recess, two-hand touch, and then it became flag football in 4th grade, flag football in 5th grade, then tackle in 6th grade, but only by a weight class. So you played with kids who were within about 10 pounds of your weight, and then 7th grade became, take the gloves off. It was anybody, any size you can play. And that was kind of eye-opening, when you first look out there and see a kid who has gone through puberty and you haven't even started, and he's coming to get you. You're going, oh boy, this is different. So football was always my favorite, but they don't have a club football team. They don't have an AAU football team. And I used to beg my dad to try to find one, but they didn't exist. And so for me, most of my experience outside of the 6 or 7 football games in the fall was to go play basketball all winter, to go play baseball all spring, and travel baseball all summer. And my dad looked at our genetics and his height and my size, my brother's size, and he said, they're definitely not playing basketball. He said, they're going to be too skinny and small for football. So baseball is really all they've got. He didn't have a background in golf or tennis or anything like that. So he assumed baseball was going to be our path, and that's kind of what he steered us towards. And then as it went along, my brother ended up playing college baseball, but he started to realize as I got to middle school that Kirk throws a baseball well, but he throws a football really well. And so that kind of then translated into emphasizing football more. But had a tremendous experience in youth sports with great memories. It not only becomes a place to learn so many life principles, but it becomes a social place. I mean, that was where you end up building friendships and you have laughs with your buddies. And so it was such a large part of my childhood.
I love asking this question. All the sports you played growing up, what was your favorite youth sports memory?
I remember in 4th grade, first time playing organized football, and football was my favorite. I'd only ever played at recess. And I come to find out that our coach for that year was going to be none other than Hall of Fame linebacker Mike Singletary. His son was also on our team, and Mike happened to live in our town. And so I have Mike Singletary teaching me how to blitz in flag football. And what was funny was we won the championship in 4th grade. We won, it was like 5 teams, right? This is not a big-time league. But we won the championship in 4th grade, won the championship in 5th grade. I then went to tackle, and Mike then took the job to be the linebacker coach for the Baltimore Ravens. So I always say, we got him his job with coaching Ray Lewis, was the success we had in youth football in Chicago playing flag football. So just to have Mike Singletary, the intensity, the drills, the fundamentals, just to see the passion he brought, and then the success we had in football. I think a big part of the fact that I love football, in addition to so many other parts of the game, is that I had success early. We won. And so football was a place where I felt good things happen when we play football. And so I think that's important too, that not that it's, everything is teed up for you, but that you walk away saying that was a positive experience.
So Kirk, you chose to go to a small Christian high school. So at what time during your experience did you say, hey, I think I may be able to play in college?
It's a
Not
good
even
question.
pros, but even college.
Yeah, I think even my dad, because I always look back now and I'll say, Dad, when did you know? And he'll say, I don't know. I don't really think I did. I remember I was going into 7th grade. I had just finished 6th grade. My brother had just finished 8th grade in the Chicago suburbs. We were about to go to a high school where I would have graduated with about 1,000 kids in our class. My dad could see it was a very competitive suburb of Chicago. And he looked at my brother about to go to high school, and he said to my mom, if we stay here and they go to this high school, I think it's going to be survival. I think they're going to be trying to survive, not thrive. And he said it's going to be so competitive that they're going to have to go all out for one sport just to see the field in that one sport. He said, I want them to have a more well-rounded experience. I want this to be more of a thriving deal where they graduate and they say, those are the best years of my life. And he said, I think we got to get out of this environment to be able to do that. And so as a pastor, he looked around for different job opportunities at different cities or ministries around the country, and he ended up settling on a small town in West Michigan, Holland, Michigan. And he moved our family there, and we ended up enrolling in the Christian school there. Really, that was on accident. We were planning on going to the public school, and they looked around, and the Christian school was actually affordable, which was unlike in Chicago. And so they said, well, we can do this. And so what ended up happening was I was able to play football, basketball, and baseball, dabble in golf and tennis in the summer, and be in the swing choir at the high school, all because there were only 225 kids in my grade. And so it didn't take a year-round commitment to the sport to be able to see the field. And so my dad's goal was accomplished. All 3 of us graduated from Holland Christian, and we look back now and we say, Dad, those were some of the best years of our life. Thank you so much for doing that and having the wisdom and discernment to take us there. So very positive experience. But how did my dad know? I think he knew when we go to 8th grade games and freshman games and JV games, and he goes, every other football team is running the football every play, and we're throwing it like half of the time pretty effectively. He knew there's something there, but he kept saying, Kirk's not big, Kirk's not fast, and Kirk's not strong. And in football, you're going to want to be big, fast, and strong. So he always felt like there's going to be a ceiling here to what Kirk can do on a football field because you need to be big, fast, and strong. And I wasn't a big recruit because of that. I lacked those things, but God had another plan. He kept finding a way, and here we are.
I got to stop real quick though. The choir, you were in the choir.
So I had my normal third period choir that 300 kids in the school are in.
Did you have any solos in your career?
I actually did, and YouTube is it's out there now, and now I can't get it back. But yeah, you guys will have to YouTube that when you get home. You'll be laughing at home. But it was a tryout deal. It was a varsity sport where you literally try out for the choir and you have to perform and put on shows and that kind of a thing. And to this day, my teammates don't understand why I did it. And I said, you have to understand, the choir teacher was cool. He was the guy. And my teammates look at me, they go, Kirk, no choir teacher's cool. Come on, man. I said, no, you got to understand. So that was fun to just kind of have that. I remember basketball practice. We had our rehearsals for the choir deal every Wednesday. So I would go to basketball practice on Wednesdays, have to leave practice halfway through because they had an agreement that they would split time. And I would then go to the swing choir practice and miss half of basketball practice. And just goes to show how the school was allowing me to be very, well-rounded. And Another interesting part of my journey was I broke my ankle my junior year of high school. And so I was not pulled up to the varsity, so I played JV my sophomore year. I played freshman football my freshman year. So junior year, first game, this is my first chance to be the varsity quarterback for my home school. And in the first quarter of the first game, I got hit on my left side and broke my ankle. And I had to miss much of that season. And I remember coming home from the doctor with the cast on my ankle, calling my dad who was at work, and I got tears in my eyes. And I said, "Dad, it's broken. I'm out for this season. Not only am I out for this season, but I probably won't get recruited now because I was already behind the 8 ball, and now I missed my junior year, which means I won't get to play college football." And my dad said, "Well, Kirk, you don't know that. You don't know what's going to transpire." But he said, "Ultimately, you've got to trust God and allow him to steer your life. And if it's football, it's football. If it's not, it's not. But you got to trust in him." And that's where Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6 became a life verse for me that I was just going to hold on to trust in the Lord with all my heart, to not lean on my understanding in all my ways, to acknowledge him and believe that he would direct my steps. And a year and a half later, I signed a scholarship to Michigan State, which was my dream school all along. And my dad pulled me aside as I was signing it, and he said, "Remember what you told me a year and a half ago, that you wouldn't get to play college football, and now you're going to your dream school, that they're going to pay for you to go to your dream school?" He said, "God's a lot bigger than a broken ankle." And so I pretty quickly learned that God and I were kind of on this football journey together, and I knew I wasn't going to make it very far without him. And it's amazing to look back now and see that was almost 20 years ago, to realize I'm still playing football. And so, yes, God's a lot bigger than a broken ankle. Go White.
So just a couple of questions, and I think I know the answers. That's why I'm asking these questions about your Michigan State career. What was your record against the University of Michigan?
Well, I got to start 3 times against Michigan, and we did go 3-0. And Mark D'Antonio, who was our head coach at Michigan State, Mark was a coach at Ohio State as well, and so he loathed the University of Michigan. And he would say, "Guys, when you play Michigan in this game, this in-state rivalry, the winner walks the streets, the loser walks the alleys."
Wow.
And that was very personal to me because I grew up in Michigan. And so I knew for the rest of my life, I'm going to go back to my hometown, and I'm going to walk down Main Street in my hometown, and I'm going to, we're either going to have one, and I'm going to feel good about walking down the street, or I'm going to see a Maize and Blue fan, and I'm going to dip off into the alley, because we lost. And so because we went 3-0 when I was playing, I walked the streets in my hometown for the rest of my life. That's pretty satisfying.
Well, the fans just gave you a round of applause. Now I want to ask you, who did you beat your last college football game ever?
So my last college football game, we played the Dogs. And we lost to the Dogs my sophomore year, my second year. That was Matthew Stafford's last college game. We lost to them. And then my senior year, we lost in the Big Ten championship game to Russell Wilson in Wisconsin, which then put us in the Outback Bowl against Georgia. We played them to triple overtime. We won. I threw 3 interceptions in the game, so I don't feel all that great about my contribution. But we did win. After the game, my parents said, "There's somebody we want you to meet." I met a girl named Julie Hampton, who became my wife. And so it's a really good thing we beat Georgia that day, because for the rest of my life, I can go to Georgia games, I can sing Glory, Glory, I can pet Ugga, I can look at the red all over my in-laws' basement and know that we did beat them. We did beat them. But I'm through and through Georgia now because I married into it.
There you go.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff. In the midst of that, you said and talked about so many things that we try to stress and talk about here. And one of the ones I want to go back to was that you played all these sports all the way through high school. And, here in Atlanta, Georgia, and in a lot of places in the country, the pressure to not play but one sport is huge. And you're a dad now, your kids they're going to be coming along. And I just want to know, are you glad you played multiple sports? Do you think you would have been better off had you done nothing but football? And what do you want for your kids?
I wish I had played more. I played 3. I wish I had played more. And I wish I had played more golf, more tennis, and done more. What was interesting was when I then went to Michigan, I was healthy through, aside from the broken ankle, that healed quickly. I felt good. Body felt good going to Michigan State. Suddenly, when I started specializing in football and essentially weightlifting then, everything started to hurt. And so it was interesting how I stayed healthy when I played a bunch of sports. And then when I focused in on one, now my body was saying, this is a lot to do over and over and over. So I think that the challenge is, because I remember the days where I would get up early to go lift weights, then go to school, try to get A's in my classes, then go to practice for basketball. Then my baseball coach would say, come back to the gym at night to do batting practice because we had to get ready for the season that's only a month or two away. And I'd go to bed after barely doing homework, and I thought, this is nuts. It did prepare me for the busyness of college and the time management that it takes, but I'm not going to say those days were easy. And so I think you have to find a balance. I think balance is a key to life. In the middle lies virtue. And I think Satan wants us either on the one side of going every which way to every possible activity and go crazy, or to be really restrictive and say, we're only going to do this and no flexibility. And the healthy place to live is somewhere in the middle. And we've got to find the middle and where's the balance. And every person, whether high capacity or lower capacity, you have to decide what's best for you and for your family. But for me, I think it was great to be able to do so much and have balance. And I think that if you do end up specializing in a sport, I think that skill development for other sports is an important thing. To be able to say, okay, I'm not necessarily driving across town for multiple sports, but I can, back in my living room, I can do some things around the house in the driveway to skill develop those other sports. So it's not always one sport, or I'm not driving around trying to play a million sports. So I think, the backyard, the driveway, the living room, that can sometimes be underrated as to the difference that can make for you in your development as an athlete.
You talked a minute ago, you made a big, obviously your junior year when you went and got hurt. And there's a lot of kids in here, whether they're hurt, whether they've gone through something like that or got cut from a team. With your faith that you talked about, what were a couple other things that you did to get through the adversity?
Yeah.
We talk a lot about being able to overcome failure and move on. What were some of the other things you were able to do?
Well, I was coming off the broken ankle my football season in my junior year, and baseball was my second sport. So if I had time, I was going to focus on football, throwing the football, weightlifting, trying to get bigger, stronger, faster. And then if I had time after that, I was going to focus on baseball, go to the cages, field ground balls, work on my arm strength, pitching. And then if I still had time, then I would go shoot hoops. And so as a result, basketball, the skill development didn't happen as well there. And so I went to basketball tryouts coming off the broken ankle. And the basketball coach said, Kirk, the night before cuts, he pulled me into his office and he said, Kirk, I'm going to keep 14 or 15 guys on the team. You're going to be the 14th or the 15th. Okay, you're not going to play. And he said, I'm telling you that now because you have a chance to potentially play college football with the way you throw the football, and I know baseball is probably your second sport, so I want to give you the freedom to turn me down and go train all winter for football your senior year and baseball your junior and senior year, and really put the time in to do that. Or you can play basketball and you'd ride the bench. What would you like to do? The ball's in your court. You can sleep on it. Let me know tomorrow. So I went home, I asked my dad. My dad said, I would call your grandpa, my mom's dad, who played college football, who became a surgeon. He said, I would call him and get his thoughts. And I called him and he said, I'd play basketball. And so I made the decision, you know what, even if I ride the bench, I'm going to play basketball. And I look back and that was a phenomenal decision because, first of all, if I never play, to go to practice every day and have to do all the movement skills of a point guard on a basketball court made a major difference for me as a quarterback, as a baseball player, as an infielder. So every day I was doing skill development and didn't even realize it, developing my athleticism that I think I still benefit from. And then secondly, I think it kept me socially with the guys, where I was spending time with them, every day, building rapport. And I could still lead. I could still have an impact on the team. And as it worked out, I did get to play some. But I think it was important for me to make a decision that even if I'm not going to play, I'm going to play. And I'm going to be all in, and I'm going to be a part of it, and I'm going to put other people ahead of myself and learn what it's like to sit on the bench. And that's okay. And understand that I'm still getting better at other things, and this has other positives than just needing to play in the game. And so that was a big win for me to learn what that meant to take a back seat and to support and to still develop as an athlete.
It sounds like you had great parents, and you've talked about your dad was a pastor. Tell us a little bit from it sounds like he built a lot of character in you, and I'm sure your mom did as well. Tell us a little bit about, from a sports standpoint, how into sports were they? How did they keep it balanced? What was your mom's role in all that?
So my mom grew up in Iowa in a small town. She ended up moving to the Chicago suburbs, which is how she met my dad. And so her background was small town Iowa. Her dad was a doctor, so they'd go to the country club and play golf and tennis, and that was it. And go to the lake house in the summer. So the intensity, that was not her experience. It was white collar. It was enjoy it, but that's it. She played on the golf team in high school. My dad grew up in the city of Chicago, went to Chicago public schools, and he was Mr. Intensity. And so there was a bit of an oil and water there. And so when it came to youth sports, that also, expressed itself. When my mom said, why do we have to be so intense? Why do we have to want to win this third grade baseball game that badly? And my dad's like, is that a serious question? Like, of course we have to win this game. My dad knows one thing, and that's to do everything with intensity. And that includes when you're taking BP in the backyard at 8 years old. And so I think my dad would tell you, looking back, he would say this. He would say, I don't know if the words regret or if I could do it over, I would have been slightly less intense about youth sports. And I would say, Dad, it wasn't that you were intense about youth sports. You were intense about everything. You were intense about everything we did. You just happened to also apply to youth sports. But as a result, he did coach our teams, and he was a good coach. I mean, our practices were organized. Kids stayed active. Nobody stood around. Our teams were good. I remember him being on phone calls for little league drafts with the assistant coaches, trying to make sure we got the right players and the right fit. I mean, he was dialed. So we look back now and kind of chuckle at that because we now have seen how the football path has played out and kind of laugh at how seriously we took that. But, I think it never really crossed the line, and we had fun with it, and we have great memories with our dad in those dugouts and on those football fields and at those basketball practices.
So, Kirk, you got drafted in the 4th round, correct? Do you think when you chose the experience you had in basketball where you were not the star, you were kind of a support role, one of the team, do you think that helped you when you entered the NFL, not being projected as the immediate starter when you got there? Do you think that helped you in terms of kind of sitting and being a good teammate first?
Well, it was an interesting path because there were 8 quarterbacks in that draft who were sort of viewed as pro-caliber quarterbacks. And so you didn't know which team was going to pick you or where you were going to go. But competitively, you wanted to land among those 8 closer to 1 than 8. And so we were all kind of jockeying through the combine and the draft prep to be closer to 1 than 8. And the night before the draft, my dad sat our family down and he opened up the Bible and he reminded me again that God's going to handle where you go. The NFL is holding a draft, but God is in control, and his sovereignty will be on display here in this draft. And so he read from 1 Samuel where David is anointed king, and he tells the story of how Samuel looks at the outward appearance of Jesse's sons and thinks that surely the oldest is going to be king. And he said, no, the Lord has rejected him. Man looks at the outward appearance, the Lord looks at the heart. And my dad told the story that, look, everybody here in this draft is looking at the outward appearance. But the heart, your heart surrendered to God, is really what's going to dictate not just the course of your football career, but the course of your life, more importantly. And so he reminded us of that the night before the draft. Well, David was the 8th son of Jesse, and so they went through 7 sons before they finally got to David. And then David, God said that's the one, they anointed him king. And so we then watched the draft, and I'm watching Andrew Luck go first, Robert Griffin go second, Ryan Tannehill went third, Brandon Weeden went fourth, Brock Osweiler went fifth, Russell Wilson went 6th, and then my college teammate, Nick Foles, goes 7th. And I go to bed Friday night, and I'm going, well, I wanted to be anybody but 8th, and here I am. I'm the 8th quarterback likely taken in this draft. So the next day, the Saturday draft, the 4th round begins, and my agent called me, and he said, Kirk, at this point, I would be able to tell you who would draft you, but you've fallen so far that any team could pick you now. I mean, it could go anywhere. Well, sure enough, I get a call from Mike Shanahan in Washington, who I would have said of 32 teams was the 32nd team most likely to pick me. He calls me and he says, Kirk, I'm going to take you. I know we drafted a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick, but I'm going to take you as well. And I thought it was a dead end. And I got off the phone, and you think it's going to be a celebratory moment of getting drafted in the NFL. And I said to my family, I said, I guess I'm going to Washington. Mike Shanahan just picked me. And so it was not the moment I envisioned. And then about an hour later, my dad was just kind of taking stock of things, and he said, do you know what number quarterback you were taking? I said, well, I was 8th. He said, you know what number son David was when we read the Bible last night? I said, he was the 8th son. He said, I think God's speaking to you. And he's not saying you're going to be anointed king of the NFL, okay? I think what he's saying is he's got his hand on your life. And just like with the broken ankle, he's bigger than this, and he will steer the ship, not you. And you just need to stay surrendered to him. And so it was amazing to then see how that all unfolded in Washington. But to answer your original question, yes. To arrive as a 4th-round pick, as a backup, was the best possible thing that could happen to me. It is a marathon, not a sprint. We all want everything to happen right now. But delayed gratification and patience and just honing your craft and accumulating knowledge over time was a powerful thing. And had I been thrown in there right away, it wouldn't have gone well, and I'd probably be out of the league now, and I wouldn't be talking to you. So the timing was such a blessing that God would bring me there, sort of bury me on the depth chart, and then allow things to work out in his time, not mine.
Hey guys, well, I hope you enjoyed episode 1. There was so much good stuff in there, and I think the cool thing is there's even maybe better stuff in episode 2 coming up next week. He talks a lot more about leadership, tells some great stories about draft day, and of course, I think the cool thing is talks a lot about this upcoming season and the Falcons, and answers some great questions from some of the audience too. So you're definitely not going to want to miss it. Please pass this one along too to any friends, family, coaches that you know, and let them know there will be another episode next week. So have a great week. Hey guys, Jeff Rancour here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.